decide not to. I think that there needs to be a little bit more guarantee if we don't go that direction.
We can reach out to them and talk to them. I mean,
Well, I'll just say, before we go too far in the contract, is there more on the finance? I just want to focus on the finance.
The 4.5%, you have two 3.5, but the 4.5.
It is, it just didn't get changed on this paper. The numbers are changed, but the.
No, I mean in the detail, by year.
Well, I see that, it doesn't show up.
You got the 3.5 twice, the new 4.5.
I'm saying is I think that the second 3.5 should say 4.5 because it did.
No, the numbers are exactly the same.
Or that didn't transfer.
Are they? I don't know, I believe.
I believe I changed the. If you look at year 2 through 7, it did change. So looking at page 3, right before we get to Lincoln, that is the 4.5. And then year 2 through 7 is different. Okay, I'm pretty sure I just didn't change that.
Tom, how much do we currently pay Price for Lincoln or whoever does the runs that we don't have drivers to run? How much do we pay them per driver, per day?
So it would be very similar to the rate that's attached to this transportation agreement with Price. So when we just did the athletics, I will say that when they're reviewed, this athletic piece in the contract, so the one for the last page, the very last page, this is a more favorable rate than what we're currently getting.
The proposal.
Yeah, this proposal in our current athletics.
Well, besides the athletics.
So it would be very similar in cost because this is almost identical to what we're currently have. Without having it in front of me, I can't speak to the exact number, but it's within $10. So instead of 355, it might be 345 or 350. I don't know the exact number.
So, but my point is, we're paying a little bit less now than what we're paying in this contract. And that's a part that I don't understand.
Yeah, I would say that was a year ago when we did that contract.
Well, if we're giving them wholesale our entire transportation department, wouldn't you think that it would be less?
I can show you what we went through for negotiations and where we got to this point.
So they wanted even more than this when they charge us?
I think there's some, so I would say the fuel, we wanted them to pay us fuel, and their rate sheet was less, but we paid all the fuel. So that was one of the negotiations we had with Price. Within the contract, we said we wanted them to pay fuel. And we
what are those individual routes subject to it? Are they locked in for any period of time, or those substitute routes that we have right now, are they year to year subject to change at any time?
Correct. So the substitute routes is year-to-year contract. The athletics we did lock in. With this, we have the ability to give 30-day notice and wrap that up into this contract. But yes, the substitute rate will be variable at any given year that we would need to hire substitutes. They could change the rate, and we would have to go out and try to find something.
But if the rate's not more favorable, I'd rather take, or significantly more favorable, I'd rather take them.
So this poses a question then, is that if we don't like their rates and the competitor is essentially the same rate or not higher, how are we going to hire substitutes? Like to fill our year-to-year, I don't understand like how we're going to get those people if we don't like their rates and nobody else.
So
how do we currently get substitutes?
We
asked them for a contract and we would review that.
I may be able to help clarify some of this confusion. Let me try. Tom's going in as well. Substitutes right now, we pay the person coming in to drive our bus or our van.
They drive their bus.
They drive their bus. Okay.
So you can't vote.
That's what I thought. I thought that was the difference.
Yeah. Because it's our buses, so they bring their own. So if you see like a KT bus out there that's theirs, that they're substituting.
See, because that's what my whole perception when we entered into this was that right now we're paying, and the number that I had in my head from before was like around 80, 90, something like that. But we pay them $300 a day to come in and provide the service. Now they're bringing their bus and everything, contractors taking the fees, whatever. But my thought was, we're gonna see a decrease in that amount when we give them the wholesale business of we're outsourcing our entire transportation department for you. It looks like that's not.
I would just say they have to hire enough people, provide enough benefits for more people than just the one that substitutes one day. Like they have to accommodate all the extra costs that come with hiring all these extra people. So I would say, I don't think that's a correlation there. This isn't, I would say, people and salaries doesn't correlate to a wholesale equipment.
Yeah, how many bus drivers do we have right now? Bus runs we have are 11.
Yes.
So what I think I'm hearing is Christ has X number of bus drivers. As soon as they enter into this, if we agree to it, they have to have X number plus 11 because they now took our drivers. So there are costs associated with bringing in new drivers, doing those things, hiring new employees, and putting those things together. And that is most likely reflected in that price.
But they backfill all those positions that we don't have right now anyway. So we're gonna give them our drivers, plus the drivers they already have.
So-
It's the same amount of drivers, but instead of paying our drivers less and their drivers more, we're gonna pay everybody.
So let's reframe it then, and maybe I'll explain it better. Imagine it was in-house. Would we pay people less because we could hire 6 more drivers to fill our 11 lanes? We're getting more people, we have more on our staff, are we gonna pay them less than what you're paying those people? I think that's your scenario, is you're saying is the contractor people take less and pay less because they have more people and more services, which doesn't correlate because you pay the people the same regardless if it's 1 or 30, and then the more people, the more complications, the more admin, more fees, more everything that comes to it. It doesn't necessarily equate to cheaper because you have more services when it comes to an actual person service.
Same service, same driver, same position.
So, just for,
I think that in almost any industry, when you do it in a guaranteed contract for multiple years, you're going to get a better rate than if it's a year-to-year, day-to-day substitute service. Like, I don't know when you would ever see a situation where that would not be the case.
because you're buying, you're saying to the bus company, okay, if we give you 7 years, there's no more RFPs, there's no more any of the bidding, any of that. They've gotten a chunk of years, and to reward that 7 years, there should be less money spent because they're saying to us, we want to reward you with a better price because of the longevity of the signing of the contracts. So, Nick's point, I think you would think that it would be, okay, we're guaranteeing you all this time, no more bids, no more this, no more that. You should be able to, if you're a bus company, you know what all your costs are, you know what your insurance is, you know what your overhead is, you know with your projections, everything, you got that. So when you're putting that bid together and you're saying, look, we got a guaranteed 7 years, there should be consideration on the other end.
I will say that, look at all the factors that are in here. They're paying for fuel, we're managing them out, we're forcing them to do things, which is a cost to them. So it's not an easy one-for-one. They can just come every day, just substitute, and it's all, they have to correlate everything that's in this contract that they have to follow. That is a cost or a constraint on them that affects their bottom line.
So this is not a standard, we're providing a service, we're providing a bus and a driver per day. No, this is a custom
Yes.
deal.
What's the
So-
difference in
But
the
we're
service
taking
they
some of the
provide?
services
Because
to do it.
that we're forcing them to use our facilities. That is a mileage rate that they don't have. We're forcing them to use and pay us back for fuel, which is a significant cost to them. We're forcing them to have extra insurance and coverage, which is extra cost to them. We are having,
They don't pay us back for fuel.
no. we have it as, for Lincoln as a slight reimbursement, but this would be, they would pay us at cost. They also have to, we're in charge of the routing, so we optimize it for us, not for them. We're taking control and we manage this so that the district is in the most control and the most beneficial package within the change.
But they run our route when they come to the substitute anyway.
But that's for one day, it's not for 7 years and they're subject to us for 7 years and we can change it on a whim. It's, any day it's changed and they know that in part of it. This is, we are saying it's ours and it will be forever ours for 7 years. And it's
You
not-
went first class and not coach.
Well, for our students.
Yes,
So-
exactly.
So we have this.
It's the same thing, we have it in-house. If we're gonna outsource, why wouldn't we outsource it correctly the first time? Now, as part of reaching out to other school districts, what would they do, what would they don't do, and getting that feedback and creating this package around that.
I'm not arguing that the terms, like those terms of things that we're requiring of them are bad. But, I mean, those kind of just, things that we need to have happen.
I know, but when you say that we're still doing stuff, then that makes the price sound even higher to me
So
than
I'll-
we're paying.
I'll show, so then, the only 2 people we had were at virtually close to the same cost. So they are running through the same thing, doing the same process, and they came to virtually within reason of the same price. So argument's sake is, both companies are gonna have an upcharge for what we put within this time. Other companies didn't bid, can't speak for the reason why, but the 2 who did are within, you can see the numbers on there, they're within $10,000 for a year, and then subsequent years, obviously it compounds, but that has to say that the weight of what we put in this contract meant something to them and cost something to them. If they were wildly different, we could argue the fact that they were within the half a percentage or something of each other.
And when we're looking at routes, we're looking at one component. I would ask us to look at the total estimated cost for what we currently have, that end price. So, yep, the routes may be a little bit higher, but in other aspects, the other parts such as fuel reimbursement is much more favorable for us. In other parts and pieces of this, added cameras in the buses, much more favorable for us at their expense. So there's a number of things that are in this overall total package to look at one part and say that one part should be lower when we have competitive.
You don't have cameras now.
We have 1 camera, they would add 2. There were 3. They would
3
add
in the
3.
buses and 2 in the vans.
There you go. Yep, they would add 2 in the buses.
When we last spoke, it was a $47,000 increase in the budget, where the additional increase coming now 2%.
So some of those factors that were, these also one thing we'll talk about is typically we don't factor in unemployment comp. Because it's variable based off the person who claim it, we don't claim it. And we don't run that out. We're requesting to add that to the ticket, all the companies and want to run the exact numbers to get it. And that's what happened. I mean, that was essentially a sole factor that changed. It's just not something we can run that out. Normally we have to read returns, it's not something we calculate very often.
But in this situation, it's going to be a situation where we're going to be paying.
Correct, and I would just say that's about.
That's why you
The
ran it.
difference is exactly what we expect for one.
And we won't be paying anything in year 3.
Correct, we verified it as a 18-month from this scenario obligation.
So we're going to pay everything this summer, and we're going to pay a portion next summer, and then nothing the year after.
Correct.
And that's part of the,
That's it, yes, that they claim
That's
it.
a law, I believe. but that's-
Yeah, that, we called the unemployment comp representative, we have it, he explained all that, yes, it would be an 18-month.
so could you just touch on, you know, our fleet is aging.
Yes.
The bus providers' buses are much newer, and there is a credit in the state that happens because it's like more money under contract, so the state's gonna, and you kind of have an idea of where that rolls at.
Yeah, that's down here in this estimated PE reimbursement. year looking backwards. So obviously, the first year we would get no credit for doing off of this year's fleet and services. And then the following year, we would get credit for the ounces. You can see it's estimated about 20,000 based off of what vehicles were. Because we're also dictating that they get 6-year or newer vehicles.
That's why this number's valid.
Yeah, that's our estimation on that. So if they would get newer vehicles and you could change routing, that can be variable on that. Our current routing was the estimated maximum 6 years, so that they have a business year running.
Well, say they run into hard times and they start getting older vehicles.
They
That
have-
number will change.
No, so within the contract, it says the first year they have to have all buses within 6 years, and then we're allowing them to use those buses for 4 more years to 10, and they have to replace the 6 years again. Anything beyond 10, they have to get official approval from the district to use, even out of spare.
So
What they
that,
want, they're saying is,
Yeah, that's the sweet spot between your 10 and 11, where the cost and the drop off.
6 to 10, you get the same reimbursement, regardless if it's 6 years. Before 6 years, you get a little bit more, but that's where the fleets and labor saying is they're going to accommodate the 6 years, but they said, what if we please use it for 4 years, so they have the 10 year. And that's something that.
And we can deny any, if they want to try to do so, we can deny that. That means they have to.
Have to get written approval
guard
by
that,
that.
in other words, you're basically saying we're guarding that.
Correct, that's a
That
safeguard.
number.
Correct.
Okay.
So, for the, including the purchase of the, how much are you estimating for the other purchase?
I had 140, which was the last budget, so it was 125, but I don't know what they are. That was.
Yeah, that was just a favorable bid that we got.
That's purchase that was paid already.
That was the one we just
That's the
made
one
in
we just
July.
purchased.
Correct.
Right.
So we don't, I mean, that's it. That's just, that's reflected on these numbers.
That's an in-house 140-day value only.
Okay.
Because,
Take away the 140, they're not asphalt.
yes. That's why I put the little asterisk there, it doesn't include the bus purchase. Yeah, we produced a connection back. I guess any more questions, I guess, from the
We're
financial?
talking about the 7 years, and how that came about, and why we want to do 7 years.
So originally, the contract was 5. Price came to us and said, we'd like to do 7. And from a district perspective, anytime you get a longer chance to lock in a favorable percentage, I believe it's as favorable as an advantage from a district perspective. Just as much as an advantage from a contractor, they get guaranteed for 7 years. We get a guarantee that their prices aren't going to raise for 7 years beyond.
Say that again, 2.5, 4.5 guarantee for the 7 years?
Correct, that's it in there. So that they have 2.5 to 4.5, and CPI, so consumer prices that fall in between anywhere from 2.5 to 4.5, that's what would be used first.
What if that goes higher?
4.5 is
It's capped. Okay.
4 or 7
And
years?
if it's less than 2.5,
it's capped.
It's capped at 2.5.
It's basically the floor and the ceiling that we're putting ourselves in. If it's anywhere between, we follow CPI.
It's a better option than the competitive, what the competitors provide.
what is the competitor?
3 to 5.
And as we go
With
through,
CPI in between?
Yes. That is a industry standard now with all the
fuel reimbursement costs, doing the reimbursed fuel. And the fuel prices go up to $4 or $5, $6, $7. We get full reimbursement for that. We don't know what the future holds with that. So that's a cost savings for us because their reimbursement
Yeah, so it could be no cost essentially.
is for 7 years.
Yeah, we'll purchase it ahead of time, they'll use it, and they'll reimburse us for every purchase, for every job they use. So regardless if it goes down to $1, goes up to $6, everything covered, or whatever people may use. That's gasoline and diesel.
What term in here do we have that makes sure you're doing a good job? And then, if they're not doing a good job, we can.
Exit of, or the exit of the contract.
So that would be under forfeiture. So page 11. So essentially, this contract says if they can perform satisfactory and adequate equipment and personnel, comply with all the terms and conditions that we're setting forth, they are, and the eligible contractor for the full 7 years. We're not gonna get rid of them because they're meeting our needs. We're not just gonna rid of them because we don't like them. As long as they can meet our needs, they provide us our service as we see it in this contract, we will hold them for 7 years. That's what we do. Said, if they can't, we give them written notice, they have it corrected. If they don't correct it, then we hold it. Essentially what that was.
So what time frame is that? Is that like a 30-day?
Yeah, so then we get 30-day written notice, and then they
Okay,
have.
so there's 2 30-day up, and then, yeah, so in 60 days, they're gone.
Yes.
If they don't.
And then we can, and we can get services elsewhere. Correct.
I would like to see a contract that has, to 7 years, with some extension options. We started at a 3-year base with maybe 2-year extensions.
I would say the extension, if they don't like us, they don't have to extend it as well. But if it's not favorable, to say their rates aren't favorable, they could also say, we don't want to renew with you. If you want to come with us, we're gonna do a new contract with new rates. Because that's the give and take with doing 7 years. These rates, if they're good today, they could be great in 7 years, and they're locked in for 7 years to give us this good rate. If we do these extensions, they don't have to honor the extensions, and they can say, we underbid 3 years ago, we want more money now. So that's the risk we run. I'm not saying it's not an option, but that's the risk we run and have to back out the RP contract with a new service.
They don't have to necessarily, the way that the language can be, is that the extension option would be district to extend, and it would be with the same terms of the contract.
Like you, like a 5 and a 2, 1 and a 1, you know, where.
We can see if they're agreeable to that, and that would, so I would say any changes to the existing contract would have to be 100% acknowledged tonight, so I can work with the price, get something to do with the work session.
Right, so those things that, if there are things that you wish, I would say the priority is to give us priority wishes, because if we go back to them with 10 different things, it's going to be really challenging to get all 10 things together. So what are the most important things?
Well, I think a shorter term is a priority. Because I'm speaking for myself, 7 years is a long